ready?
Hit me.
Welcome to the 027figures.com podcast, where small business owners receive proven strategies, suggestions, and supercharged ideas to take your business from 0 to 7 figures in revenue.
Cha-ching!
Here we go. Green light, full power.
Recording. Okay, we did it. Hi, y'all. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm super excited. Maria and I are super excited to talk to these two guys today. And so we're gonna jump right in. I'm Jesse Newquist. I'm the team leader of Keller Williams in Denton, Texas. And Maria, the best last name ever, Maria DePoch from Keller Williams in Allen, Texas. And so all we're doing is we're talking to business leaders and business owners about their experience in the shift and talking about some of the things that people are not talking about. And so, and I told these guys already, I'm super casual here. So you guys just jump in and talk about whatever we want to, but we do have some questions for you. So Abe Ruiz is the owner of NTX Roofing and a friend and an all-around cool guy. He's going to tell us about his podcast and everything that he's working on and building. And then I just got to meet Bryan Post. You described yourself as an entrepreneur first, right? I want you to say exactly what it was before. It was a great description. And an author of how many books did you say? 13 books?
13.
That's incredible. So tell me more. Tell me more about you. Tell me more about the entrepreneur and author.
So the entrepreneurship started when I was really young. I was 6 years old when I started my first little business, had a couple lemonade stands. My highest day was $4.25. I remember that like it was clockwork. And I also remember that when I first started out in my driveway, and I realized pretty quickly, and it's still a lesson that I learned today, that if I wanted to make the big money, I had to go down the block to the corner. And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs don't expand themselves enough outside of their area. They get too comfortable. So I actually have a DNA for entrepreneurship. My biological family, they were all entrepreneurs. And I just started, it wasn't shortly after I finished my master's degree, I just realized that I had problems with authority and I couldn't work for anyone else.
I have that same problem.
Guilty.
I had about 6 different jobs in the span of, I think, 6 months. And finally, I had a mentor who said, you can do that for yourself. So that's when I was 25 years old. I started my first business, and I've been an entrepreneur ever since.
That's awesome.
That is
awesome.
so cool.
You said you described your first love, your first passion, and what your books are about. Will you tell me that again?
So my first love, my first passion is serving adoptive families and adoptive children. So families who are in crisis, kids who have diagnoses, they have severe behavior problems. I've been doing that for the last 20 years. I feel like God made me to do that. And that's just always been my purpose. I've always been really good at it. And that's what all my books are written around. I've lectured all over the world. My books have sold over 500,000 copies. And it's just something that comes naturally to me and it feels good. And I've been fortunate in able to weave that into entrepreneurship, because most social workers, most therapists, they struggle to ever even just go into private practice. It was something for me that private practice wasn't enough. I needed to create business around it because I knew that's how I would impact the most people.
And that is one of the commonalities that me and Bryan both have. Is my background is in youth ministry. So I've worked with kids from age, I started when I was 18, and I worked all the way through till I was 30 years old. And so that was one of the other things that we had in common, was that we both worked with kids.
Yeah.
I did not. All right. I did not have a cool youth pastor. Like, seriously, if Abe was my youth pastor, well, I might have had a very different trajectory in life.
Yeah, you wouldn't be very successful right now, probably. But
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Do you still mentor? Do you still mentor kids at all, or do anything with that?
No, I do. I have so with NTX Roofing, I started a program that I'm working with the junior high, or not the junior high, the juniors and seniors in the high school. And I'm teaching them how to build a business model, how to implement it, and how to sustain it. Wow. We're giving them 1, 3, and 5 year plans. So, and I have a couple of them that work with me now, and I start them as salesmen, you have to learn from the ground up, man. You do. It's right. They think you can walk into a job. It's a generational thing. They think you can walk in and make $100,000 just because they're cute. It doesn't work that way anymore.
Yeah.
at least in my world, it never did. Like, maybe I wasn't cute enough. But so, yeah, so I have one that's actually coming over this afternoon, and he's actually going to be doing podcasts with me because he's super intelligent. Both of his parents are actually, they work at UNT. And so they both are in the behavioral science department. So he's got a very strong head on his shoulders. And so it's very interesting. He's going to take over we're going to start working in Missouri, and he's going to take over the Missouri division. So that's awesome. Something, yeah, it's been a really good experience for me and for him too, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. I have a question for Bryan, only because you brought up something that a lot of these people that were going live to the specific group, I think, share. And it's the thing about being born an entrepreneur, right? Like, my husband and I, we're so different in that sense. Like, he can't imagine being his own boss, where I can't imagine not being my own boss. Yeah. And even though, in the role that Jesse and I have in Keller Williams, yes, we are technically employees of the brokerage. We run that. I mean, our mindset is very different. We have a lot of ownership in everything that we do. So Bryan, I want to know, aside from knowing that you had an issue with the authorities and maybe that, you didn't want to be told what to do, when to do, how did you know? Like, what does that feel like? What does that look like for you to know that you're an entrepreneur?
One of the things for me is always having an unsettled mind, a mind that was just always thinking and honestly always thinking looking for opportunities, because it just excited me. I was the kid who used to stare at the back of the post Toasties box of cereal and dream about winning the dirt bike. So I was just always a dreamer, and there's just something about that. Yeah, the post Toasties. Yeah.
You just dated yourself, bro.
And so that unsettled mind has just always been never really being comfortable, and always being more comfortable. I find more comfort in uncomfort and discomfort than I do in comfort.
Absolutely. Wow. That's the same thing here. It's the restless mind. Like it never stops. Yeah. I get bored, and I was talking to Bryan when I first met him. I get bored very easily because once I've reached the goal that I set out for myself, now I'm looking in a different direction. And so with roofing, luckily, it's allowed me to venture into other parts of roofing and then come up with the different programs. Otherwise, it might be a little more difficult for me.
I learned from, I think, who was it? I think it was Mel Robbins that said, or that taught me, that feeling of being stuck is actually just an indication that you're ready to grow again, right? That you're able to, you want to go back into growth mode. And sometimes we're in it, sometimes we're not. And I feel like serial entrepreneurs are always in it. Mm-hmm. I just heard before you say, Abe, around your mentoring program, like that's a business. Like there's a business there. I feel, do y'all do that too? You hear people talking about their ideas, right? And you're like, you're about to go into business.
Yeah. Well, and that's honestly, that's kind of where we're at now with the podcast that we've launched with 0to7figures.com. It is about mentorship and also working. It's a mastermind group that we're working with other entrepreneurs that are either they're stuck and they need to learn how to pivot, or they need to learn how to reinvent the business. And there's a lot of things that are so simple that people overlook. And so that's what we cover in this 5-part series that we started a podcast with.
Yeah.
So tell us about it. Tell me about tell the name of the podcast. Like when do we get to listen to it? I want to know all about it.
Go ahead, Bryan.
So it's 0 to 7 figures.com, and the podcast is 07figures.com podcast. And we should have the site up by next week. And basically it's just building off of Abe's podcast that he started with NTX Roofing, except it's just talking to small business owners, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. You know, there's so many businesses that are shutting down. There are entrepreneurs and small business owners that are just freezing up. They don't know what to do, but there is a contingent of small business owners that are thriving. They're pivoting. They're doing more creative things. They're digging in deep. And so we want to connect, number one, through the podcast and just share our experience. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I've had more failures than I have successes. And I've studied marketing for years. And so we want to share that so that we can inspire, encourage, and motivate small business owners because they're so important.
So I love that. Tell us a story. What if the question that I wrote down is what is the business, or who is the person that stood out to you most this last 4 to 6 weeks? Is there a story you can share about us about who stood out the most, who made the biggest, most creative changes in their business, and what was that?
So I just right off the top of my head, as far as a small business owner, I have a friend who was her whole specialty was these really unique weighted blankets. So for autistic children who have sensory issues, she was making a significant living doing that up until this. And because she sews, and it's something she does all the time, and she loves fabric, she's obsessed with it, she pivoted, put the blankets to the side, started doing masks, and she's selling $400 a day in masks. And then for every mask she sells, she donates 10 more. So it's that awesome kind of creativity, ingenuity, and hunger, and that's just so exciting.
This just makes me think, I'm an immigrant in this country. I was born and raised in Italy. So I'm actually technically not a citizen. I have a green card. This country as a whole was founded on immigrants coming here and really wanting to build the dream, right? Building the white picket fence. And I think we've had such an amazing run this last 100 years, and really specifically even maybe these last 10 to 12 years, where in some ways business has been simple and it's been easy because the economy was just kind of at a perfect right point for everybody to make money. And now that we got to put our hats back on, our immigrant hats back on, to go, how do we innovate? Because if you're not innovating, you're kind of getting left behind.
You're dying.
And I know of a company right now, and I don't want to say what it is. It's not a real estate company. It's actually a multi-level marketing company that I was talking to somebody about yesterday, that I believe the reason why they're going to shut down is because they just didn't innovate. When you have Uber and you have, Uber Eats and all these things that are coming out, and you're not adapting to that style,
There's a lot of restaurants in town that we were talking about this on the last podcast that we did about, curbside service not being a pivot point, but actually just adding a service and people understanding that. Excuse me, Brian, can you continue on that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're
Abe's in the roofing business.
Oh yeah.
There's a tornado warning.
That's right.
Guys.
That's
might
right.
move in any minute.
Right.
I called you 3 times. You got to pull over. Hold on 1 second, guys.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No, so Abe was telling me a story about, about a restaurant in town, and I think it was Giuseppe's. I believe it was Giuseppe's, who we love. Mm-hmm. And what they're realizing is that, that was one of the hidden benefits, right? He did it originally, maybe out of scarcity and to stay in business, and just keep it alive. And he's realizing that he's expanded. So what are some of the ways or some of the businesses that you've seen benefit coming out of this shift already from how they've pivoted?
Well, I don't deal with a lot of business owners I don't know a lot of business owners that I know there are a ton going out of business, but pretty much everyone that I associate with, they're just hammering down and getting more creative. And that's what Abe was saying. There's a difference between pivoting versus getting more creative to survive.
Correct.
Right? Pivoting is changing your whole business concept and almost morphing into something new.
Blankets to masks. Yeah.
Yeah. Blankets to masks. Getting more creative is more just creative on how to sell that widget that you sell. And like Maria was saying, the last 10 to 12 years, we've been able to be lazy entrepreneurs. We didn't even have to be that creative because this economy has been so good. I follow Gary Vee a lot, and Gary Vee is always talking about, if you're not thriving in this economy 30 days ago up to the last 12 years, he said you should be kicked in the pants because anyone can make it. He said, but when the economy crashes, and he's been predicting it for the last few years, he said that's where the rubber's going to meet the road, and the real entrepreneurs are going to stand out, and the wannabes, as Mark Cuban calls them, entrepreneurs, are going to all go to the wayside.
Yeah. So
true.
That's one of the things that I've had to do. So I was talking to Brian about this the other day. Is that I've been very, I don't want to say scared. I've ran away from social media, and I'm not like, I'm an very old school guy. So I like to go out there, I like to shake hands, I like to meet people, and so it's been a test or a trial for me to actually get into the social media. But I found out that I really enjoy it, and honestly, somewhat good at it too. And I didn't realize it until I got into it. And the other part of you talking about the creative marketing, that is something that I feel like I'm very good at. And so like the things like we're talking about the mentorship program that we started, but we also started a Live Fit Challenge. And Live Fit Challenge really,
I love this. Yes. It's
nothing but other than like a space where people can come and drop. I want to see what you're doing at home. You can't go to your trainers. You can't go to the gym. I want to see what you're doing. So send pictures as encouragement to the community so they can see what you're doing too, what you're eating, how you're trying to adjust in the lockdown situation. We call them lockdown workouts is what we're calling them. So
I want Abe to follow me around my house and snack cookies out of my hand right now. I feel like that would help me. So around the podcast, okay, this is the new thing that you're starting. Can you talk about and Brian, I know that this is you being the serial entrepreneur, you both being the serial entrepreneurs. You said you bought and sold somewhere around 25 different businesses.
19 over the last 20 years.
19 over the last 20 years. What is the planning? Do you have a particular model for business planning that you follow across the board?
Sure. It's called action. It's called taking action. It's called ready. It's called
moving your feet.
Ready, fire, aim. And what it really speaks to is not being afraid of failure. Yeah. Too many people get stuck in trying to think everything through, and it's paralysis of analysis, analysis paralysis, however you say it, because you think about it too much instead of just going and taking action. Literally, Abe and I have been talking about this for about a year or so, but we both have gotten really busy with our other business ventures. And then the other day, I sent him a text. I said, hey, man, we should start thinking about doing that mastermind thing again. And this is also my point, where a lot of entrepreneurs during an economy like this start retreating. We're actually creating something. So we're investing dollars to help other business owners to make more dollars for themselves, and then we'll benefit also, because it's going to challenge our own business acumen. And so I texted him last week, and we've already got 3 episodes recorded. Website's going to be built by next week. Logo, it's already moving forward. It's taking action.
And the fear, I think, is the one that you got to speak to, especially when you're talking about like COVID-19.
Yes.
People are very scared. That's why the economy crumbles in this situation like this. It's not because of actual problems. It's because of the fear and what your mind creates. It's psychological. It's rarely the truth. And so you get a run on the bank, or you have the stock market crashing. It's not because of actual things that are happening. It's because of the fear of the things that might happen.
Yeah.
That was something that I watched a really great, very quick and really great lesson from Simon Sinek. He was meeting with his team. He's I guess you would call him a business development speaker. He's a speaker first, I would say, an author, of course. But he was meeting with his team, and what he said was, listen, I don't know anything about what my job is going to be in 30 days from right now, but I know we're all here and we're staying here. It might be completely different, but I'll make a job here with y'all.
Yeah.
It's the stories of the people that are making jobs right now that is fascinating to me. Like those are the most creative people. Like people are going to get famous right now. And I hate to say this, but half of our real estate agents in our area, they may go away. They may get weeded out because they're not getting creative and they're afraid. But those stories of people that are getting famous,
especially around technology. I mean, right now, you know, Jesse and I do nothing but talk to real estate agents all day. That's literally our job, right? Some are with our KWs, some are not, right? We come from a place of contribution. How do we help? And so many people, I go, oh, just jump on a Zoom session with me. And they're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, like, if I could reach through my phone and like slap you, I kind of would, because like, how is that possible? Like, I mean, you got to learn how to FaceTime and Zoom and go live on Facebook. And, you know, I mean, these are no longer just like, well, maybe someday I'll learn how to do it. These are like, you go stop what you're doing and go learn it yesterday, you know?
That is correct. Yeah.
Abe, you talked about learning social media. What else? What are some other things y'all had to jump into and learn?
I'm going to give a shout out to Randy Skinner, because she's helped navigate the ship for me, because honestly, it is way out of my wheelhouse, but I am learning it. And one of the things we talked about in yesterday's podcast was going live on Facebook. It is a huge tool. When you're in the middle of doing something that you do for a living, why aren't you out there showing them what you do? If you're not, there's got to be a reason for it, and I don't know what that reason is. But,
yeah, I mean, a lot of people are uncomfortable being in front of a camera, or they're worried they're saying the wrong thing. And Jesse and I were like, no, we actually want these things to be live, because we come up with better things when we're live than when we're, you know,
spitfiring.
Just having a conversation, and somebody somewhere, whether it's in this group or later when we share it other places, somebody somewhere is going to be impacted in a great way from the simplest thing that she said or did. And it's almost like, man, some people have the mindset around, I don't want to talk about myself and share my world like that. In such a way, in such a conceited way. And I see it as complete opposite. It's kind of your duty. This is what you do. It's what you're put here for, to impact people, right?
I agree. Yeah.
100%.
So what else? What else have you learned? And what else have you had to learn? Anything just brand new and totally foreign that now has been a gift?
What am I learning that has been brand new?
Brand new.
You know, I was doing, it's interesting. I was doing so much of the social media stuff already. And then what I find with my social service agency, which is based in Northern California, so much of the competition, and I don't even really think about competition, but so much of the other people out there trying to provide a similar service already weren't doing those things. And so now that just puts me that much further ahead of everyone else, because I have, you know, this number one comfort with social media stuff, but I also have like what you ladies are doing right now. What's really cool, and was something Abe and I talked about on the podcast as well, is that a Facebook Live video is long tail marketing. This lives forever. And so this video will reach thousands of potential realtors over time. And that's the beauty of being able to just take action. And so I don't know that I'm necessarily doing anything new. I'm just staying the course and digging in more and looking for other opportunities that might show up.
I think one of the things too you got to address is, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs just jump in. We talked about an entrepreneur having a hobby and trying to make it a business. It doesn't necessarily work that way. You actually have to educate yourself on what you're getting into. So if I can make let's say I make a good toy box for kids, just because I'm good at that doesn't mean I can actually make a business out of it. It's a hobby, and understanding the difference between being a hobbyist and being an entrepreneur is important, because you go out there, you'll end up investing a lot of money, and you end up losing a lot of money, and you put your family in a very bad position. And so that's one of the things that I'm really big on, is educating myself. Everybody's like, man, you jump in and you do those things fast. So yeah, but I know what I'm doing before I do it. I don't just do it haphazardly. I educate myself on the whole process, so I know what I'm getting into from the beginning to the middle to the end. And I have goals, and that's another thing we're going to be talking today, is about knowing your numbers, knowing the numbers, knowing how much am I investing on the front end, and what is the return, and what is it going to take to get to that return. And it's not as simple as people think it is. And I've had several people say, well, if you can do it, I can do it. I said, well, giddy up.
We talk a lot about that in Keller Williams. You don't know your numbers. How do you start? How do you even set a goal if you don't know where you're at, right?
Right.
How do you get where you're going if you don't know where you're at?
Right. You are here, which is where.
Exactly. So tell me more about goal setting. Do you have what's your process?
So for me, I always start out, and I've been writing goals for 20 years. And so I had a lot of good goal writing mentors that basically tell you to write without limit. And so many times we get fearful. Write without limit. It doesn't matter what it is. Just start writing. A lot of people just won't start writing. And I also listened to an audio program once where the guy said he had learned about writing goals from a Chinese billionaire who wrote his goals every single day. And the guy said, if it's good enough for a billionaire, it's good enough for me. So he wrote his goals every day. I started writing my goals every day. I don't write them every day anymore, but I still carry around my goal book with me. And occasionally I write down the same goals. Sometimes they change, sometimes they don't. And I always write them down as I am achieving them right now. It's like I am becoming a ultra high net worth individual. You know, I am investing in 20 apartment buildings. I am starting a mastermind group with Abe Ruiz. And so it's like I'm doing it right now. And I feel like that really speaks to the law of attraction and programming my consciousness to attract those things into my life.
I'm all in on that. I believe in that 100%. It's true.
Me too.
I heard to it as referred as a sacred echo also, which I just loved. Like you start thinking about something and you hear and you start seeing it, you start hearing it. It's not baloney. It is real. It happens.
Well, and you know what it lines up with that a lot of people don't understand is your financial thermostat. You know, what you're doing, Brian, every single day is, as you're saying, I am, you're telling your subconscious mind that your financial thermostat is set at this number. And I think a lot of times what people do is they'll start businesses or they'll start something, they'll get involved in some sort of investment or whatever the case may be. Their financial thermostat is still set at $60,000 a year, but they're trying to make like $150,000 a year. And it's like, it's literally impossible for them to close that gap until in their mind, they believe that they're worth that number, you know?
Correct.
Let me
like Dak Prescott.
I want to give you an example of that real quick. When I first started out wanting to, I think one of my goals is I wanted to make $1 million. That's like everyone's goal. And so I had this conversation with a friend of mine who grew up in Beverly Hills. His dad was a well-known attorney. And he was talking to me. I was telling him about these stories about Mark Cuban, about the Waltons. And I kept saying they're worth like 25 million and Mark Cuban's worth 11 million. And he's like, no, I think they're worth more than that. It wasn't until after that conversation I realized that those people were worth billions, which meant I didn't even know what $1 million was. So how could I achieve it? And then I was reading a book about Benjamin Franklin's autobiography. And one of the things he set for himself to do was to double his income every year. When I read that, I thought, now that's something I can do. And I remember when I first started that.
It is achievable,
Yeah, I was making like $60,000 a year. And I just started working on doubling it every year. And I realized that when I got to a certain point, I had to think differently to double it again. And that's when I moved from being self-employed to being a business owner.
Yeah. Ooh, that's so good. We could talk about that for like 20 minutes.
All day long.
That's what like sometimes is hard about these are trying to keep them this small. Sure. So cash flow quadrant, right? Yeah. Self-employed on this side where 95% of people live, right, versus business owner and investor where 95% of wealth is. Yeah. Okay. If that, like literally that's right there, like just go figure out how to get from this side to that side. Right. Like if you
one side has employees working for them, the other side has money working for them. Right. Like that's to the other side. And 95% of the people, 5% of the money made, and the opposite, and vice versa on the other side.
And some people don't understand that at all. Like they've never been exposed to it, you know? And I think that that's what's cool about what you guys are doing is that you're exposing generations and who knows out that ripple effect of just explaining to someone there's a difference between being an employee and being an employer.
Yeah.
I know for me, somebody gave me 2 books when I was 18 that totally changed my life. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and Rich Dad Poor Dad. You give anybody those 2 books when they're 18, man, their life changes forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what can we ask you guys, what are like 1 or 2 books for each one of you?
Books, podcasts, yeah,
like
that's
really
I want to know.
You know what? I actually am reading a book right now called Moonshots. Have you read it?
No.
Give me a second. Brian, go ahead and tell me your books. I'm going to go grab it real quick.
So my thing is I'm a huge lover of autobiographies, and I have probably read 50 of them. And so the thing about autobiographies, and it really doesn't even, for me, it's always business. It's success leaves clues. And I can be talking to someone about what I'm going through, and I can feel 100% confident in my struggle because I've got 50 guys that I've read about who've all gone through the same struggle that I am following in their footsteps. So that, reading biographies is big for me. But like you said, Napoleon Hill, Abe and I are doing a mastermind that's right out of Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki also wrote another book called Retire Young, Retire Rich. That was I probably enjoyed that even more than Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It just spoke to me more. And then, geez, I can't even, there's so many.
I know, there really is. Yeah. But I've never heard of that. Retire Young, Retire Rich. I'll have to go pick it up because I love Robert Kiyosaki. I think he's a genius.
Give me another. I'm going to start reading autobiographies now. That's really exciting.
Yeah. Brian, what about an autobiography that you've read that you really feel like you got a ton out of? Like one that was just dripping with nuggets the whole time?
Mm.
Let me think about that. You got me on the spot.
And it's fine. It's gonna change. It might have been the same for all of them. It was just what you needed in the moment.
A contemporary series trilogy of books for your audience to really look into is .com Secrets, Expert Secrets, and Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson. Those are going to be classic books. Russell is the founder of Clickfunnels.com.
Yeah.
And those would be, he's a personal friend of mine. There's another book called The Trick to Money is Having Some by Oscar Wilde. It's a fantastic book.
You mentioned Russell Brunson. So I've probably watched the commercial, the Facebook ad for Clickfunnels 50 times. It's just a commercial, and it's brilliant. If you've never watched it, the commercial itself is motivating. Yeah. It gives me awesome energy. I love that.
I have to go watch it.
Yeah, you have to. It's great. I'll find it for you. I'll send it to you. You'll love it.
Send it to me.
That's cool. All right, so tell me about moonshots.
Abe, you never got to talk about your moonshots. Is that kind of like, I think your mic
hit your button.
Or you're muted.
There it is. Can't hear. I was commentating the whole time. Y'all didn't hear me?
No.
I was like, yep. I was having an amen in there. No, I'm just kidding. So moonshots, it speaks to like, this book speaks a lot to fear, like to avoiding fear. So taking a moonshot. So what is your moonshot? What is the biggest thing that you can think of that you don't think you can achieve? And then you figure out a way to achieve it. That's the whole book. And it's just about his life experiences.
Love that.
Moonshot to moonshot, where he was, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to go. How do I get there? And he would build out a plan, just like he would write down every day, write down the same thing over and over again. What are my goals? And that's a big thing for me. And, earlier you made a mention to me that you said I was weird. Jesse.
You are.
I'm a weird.
I love you.
And it's okay. No, but I was going to mention something, and it is weird. But I believe that when you are so invested into something, you dream it. I dream very vividly my next day's business. And it to the point where it kind of bothers me a little bit. But I wake up and I have a dream journal. I write down everything, and I go back and I look at the dream journal, and I can see where I've taken something from the dream, implemented it into my life, and it actually has come to fruition. And it's been productive. And that's, I don't think everybody can do that. I don't think everybody has the same kind of brain, but that's, for me, it works.
You're invested. You're invested.
Well, and it also makes sense, like energetically. I don't know if you guys like understand the law of attraction, but when you go to sleep, your mind actually has a chance to clear. So when you wake up, that's the time where you are the closest to the point of attraction as you can possibly be, because you don't have any negativity. You've had like 8 hours for your brain to reset. Unfortunately, what people do is they turn on the news in the morning. So they get right back into the negative part. So that's one of the reasons why I don't watch the news in the morning, because I'm at the highest level of attraction, and everything that I've been putting out there, that's where I'm the most receptive. In fact, a lot of you guys probably get a lot of really good ideas when you first wake up. It's literally coming straight from the universe that's telling
you. And your energy is about that is the science behind the miracle morning. Let
me comment on that from a neurobiological perspective. Please. You're at the highest point of attraction first thing in the morning. Most of us are, because our cellular system and our brain is regulated. When we're in a regulated state, our stress levels are down and our oxytocin levels are up. And so it opens our cellular experience, and we're vibrating at a much higher consciousness. So when you're focusing on those goals and you're focusing on those desires and those pictures of what you want, your cells can receive them in a much deeper way, because you're not constricted into survival.
Well, and what's crazy is then you're right. You're 100 trillion% right. And so here you are, you're vibrating at a super high frequency. And then what do? You go watch everything about the coronavirus. And then like, you're just like, please.
Here comes the fear.
Garbage.
Here comes the psychological warfare. Yeah.
Right? Yep. So, I
bet you could do a research study right now that the majority of successful entrepreneurs and small business owners probably don't watch more than 20 minutes of the news or the COVID stuff every day. Because when you're taking action, you don't have time for all that stuff.
Literally, the only time I watch it is when somebody sends it to my phone. Yeah. And even then, I'm like, why did you send that to me? Like, I thought you might want an update. I'm like, I have access. I have Wi-Fi.
No, I live under a rock.
It doesn't
My husband tells me, like, hey, baby, you got to wear a mask now if you leave the house, because we live in Dallas County. I was like, all right, I'll wear a mask. Like, okay. I mean,
information's there.
I've got people.
One of the things I want to speak to when we're talking about entrepreneurship is about who you put yourself around. And that's a big deal, because that's why I like Bryan, because we build off each other and we encourage each other. We help each other aspire to our highest point. And that's the difference. Is like, I have friends that are like, for instance, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he had a bar that he frequented, and he would go there and he would talk to these people, and they would discuss ideas, but that's all that ever was discussion. I said, there is no movement happening in that bar, because it's just people talking about what they really want to do with their life, but don't think they're capable of doing. And why would you want to put yourself around that person?
Yeah. So, you're who said it? You're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I want to spend time with successful people, with wealthy people, with happy people. If that's the case, right?
Well, and they raise your level of thinking. I have kind of a funny story. I have a friend of mine that's very well off that lives in Nice in France. And she owns a vineyard. Her family like developed half of the like Nice, the coast, the French Riviera. So anyways, long story short, we have to go visit her. She has the most amazing bed and breakfast. But the point of my story is that I flew into Nice, and I rented a car, which was a stick shift in a different, I do know how to drive standard, but not as well as I should, in a different country with signs that are not in English. And so I finally get to her vineyard, and I'm like crying. I'm stressed out. I mean, one day when we're drinking, I'll tell you the whole story because it's hilarious. However, when I get there, she says to me, I don't understand, Maria. Why didn't you just rent a helicopter? I'm like, oh, yeah, the helicopter. Right. Of course. Duh. I mean, why would you drive from Nice to her vineyard when you can just rent a helicopter and take the helicopter? But I mean, but had I never hung out with somebody like her, I never would have thought that was even on the table.
Yeah.
Like, and now next time I fly to Nice, especially if it's this group, we're renting that.
I'm taking a helicopter. Can I share a book with you guys that I'm telling everybody about, because it I guess maybe it was just the right time to read this, but it impacted me. I devoured this book. I've read it 3 times already. Have y'all read this, Power of Moments? By Chip and Dan Heath. Okay, so these guys are brothers. They also wrote a book called Made to Stick. That's amazing. It's a marketing book, but it's the brain science behind creating experiences, and that there's not necessarily inauthenticity behind wanting to create a great experience for someone, so they remember for their benefit or for yours or for both. And it's a lot about transitions. There's a lot of talk about transitions, that what makes a moment the most powerful is it is in a transition, like a new job. If you think about a world-class onboarding process, to where like there's a culture committee of people that come around and make you feel welcome. So you leave on your first day knowing I am in the right spot. That person is unrecruitable. You'll have them forever if you get the transition right. And it's the perfect time for this book for anybody that's trying to market or remarket themselves. It's just about creating moments. Yeah, Chip and Dan, I love it. Oh, you'll love it. You will love that. So, all right, you guys, we've taken up a lot of your time, and I could have this conversation. I can continue this conversation, and is it okay if I reach out to you and give you some updates about the people that you've impacted?
Would love to.
Yeah. We got a lot of watchers, a lot of people laughing at us. I hope it's because we're funny.
I do want to do a little push for the Hail No NTX. So I have a YouTube channel. It's called Hail No NTX. Please subscribe. It is a newer channel, so I need subscribers on there. But we don't just talk about roofing, because honestly, that's a snore. So we talk about almost everything else, it seems like. And that's kind of why we spun off into the direction we did. It's like, I'm not actually talking about roofing that often. I do correlate everything I talk about back to it, because that's what makes sense. But it was more about branding than anything. So
you should spell that, Abe. You should spell
Hail, H-A-I-L, like hail that falls out of the sky. K-N-O.
Hail No.
NTX.
Hilarious. And yeah, we are under a tornado warning right now too. So I know you get excited. Is it warning?
To watch.
Hey, no, I'm sorry. Watch.
You're going to freak people out. No, it's a watch.
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm sorry. We're not under a tornado warning. We're under tornado watch. It's Texas.
Yeah, always.
And I've personally used Abe for as roofing services. I don't know how many times, dozens and dozens, right?
And we appreciate that. We work almost exclusively with realtors. Guys, if you need any help in that world, in the roofing world, if it's just advice, please call us.
Abe's on it.
NTXRoofingExperts.com. That's my website. That'll get you to a chat box, or you can call me directly.
Thank you.
And if anyone wants to know more about 0to7figures.com until we get our website up, they can just reach out to you guys, and you can just pass it on to us.
Absolutely. And I know it's brand new, and you've taken so much action on it already since you've decided, and I'm excited. I'm excited to hear the podcast. I'm excited for the website to come up. I love the name of it, 0to7figures.com. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's an awesome name.
Brian, tell me anything else I can mention for you. I'm excited. You guys have impacted some people today.
That's, 0to7figures.com is our hope to bring a lot of empowerment, a lot of insights, and a lot of hope to a lot of people who may not have thought they could get to the next level. Well, they can get to the next level, and hopefully they'll even get beyond where Abe and I have been able to get to over the years. So that's really what I'm focused on in this area.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you guys so much. I hope to talk to you really soon. I'm going to share this with you too, because it was recorded, and air hugs, guys. Stay safe.
All right. Knuckles.
Bye.
6 foot knuckles.
Yep. Take care.
All right. Y'all be good.
Bye.
This concludes another episode of the 0to7figures.com podcast. Please smash that like button and leave your feedback and suggestions. We would love to hear from you. And if you're a small business owner wanting to hit 7 figures in the next year, click the link below to learn more about the 0to7figures.com mastermind.